Velvet Fang Stories presents The Alpha I Was Supposed to Kill, Series 1. Viewer discretion advised. The story you are about to experience contains mature themes, fantasy violence, intense emotional situations, and language intended for a mature audience. This is a fictional work. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, places, organizations, or events is purely coincidental. Please enjoy responsibly. Copyright Velvet Fang Stories. All rights reserved. Last time, on the Alpha I Was Supposed to Kill, she came to Roh Canyon with one mission: kill the Alpha. But the moment AhMarrah stood before Kye-Yell, something impossible happened. The Heart Tether awakened. The assassin couldn't finish the mission. The Alpha couldn't walk away. And what should have ended in blood became something neither of them could escape. Because AhMarrah wasn't just another rogue wolf. She was a survivor, a weapon shaped by dark sorcery, a woman carrying secrets even she couldn't remember. When the Heart Tether nearly killed her, Kye-Yell brought her to Lower West, a place built for the impossible. And there, the truth began to surface. Varric had tried to break her, tried to control her, tried to turn her into something that obeyed. But AhMarrah survived. The Madraith fell, the bond strengthened. And the more Kye-Yell learned about AhMarrah, the harder it became to imagine a future without her in it. For the first time in years, AhMarrah laughed. She slept. She ate. She began to feel safe. But peace never lasts, not in Roh Canyon. Because while AhMarrah was learning how to live again, Eris arrived. The woman expected to become Luna. The woman politics had chosen. The woman who believed her future was already secure. And suddenly, the future of Roh Canyon became anything but certain. The Heart Tether is growing stronger. The pack house is changing. The Dominion is watching. And tonight, everything changes. Because some storms don't arrive with thunder. They arrive wearing a smile. And now, episode 16.
The pack house didn't feel calm. It felt contained. Like something powerful was trying very hard to behave itself. At the base of the staircase, Kye-Yell stood unnaturally still, while Kye-Yell watched him carefully beside the entryway. Then the tether surged. Hard. Not subtle. Not patient. Kye-Yell's breathing shifted sharply. Controlled. Barely. His head lifted. And there she was. AhMarrah. Descending the staircase beside Karlani, wrapped in deep burgundy. Not a dress. A gown. The corseted bodice hugged her waist and ribs like it had been sculpted directly onto her body, while rich burgundy silk draped from her hips beneath dark, wine-colored roses stitched into the fabric like blooming velvet. The slit along her leg shifted with every graceful step, revealing smooth brown skin before disappearing again beneath layers of flowing satin. Her locks swept over one shoulder in thick auburn waves, while diamond earrings brushed softly against her neck each time she moved. She didn't look overdressed. She looked inevitable. And standing below her, Kye-Yell looked like the physical embodiment of expensive danger. His tuxedo matched her perfectly. Deep burgundy, black satin lapels, tailored so sharply it looked painted onto him. The fitted jacket stretched tightly across his shoulders and chest, while the dark vest beneath sculpted his torso even further. Black silk wrapped loosely at his throat instead of a traditional bow tie, controlled enough to remain formal while still looking dangerous. Together, they looked less like a couple entering a ballroom and more like two royal predators deciding whether the room deserved to survive the night. The matching colors didn't feel coordinated. They felt destined, as if Roh Canyon itself had carved those formal outfits specifically for them, for him, for her, for this exact moment. And standing side by side beneath the chandelier light, they didn't look newly paired. They looked ancient, like something the pack had been waiting generations to see again. Take her, now. Inside Kye-Yell, Draven completely lost patience. The armored convoy flashed through Kye-Yell's mind, the convoy speeding toward the hangar, then carrying AhMarrah in his arms to his private jet for weeks. Another step. Her scent reached him. Cinnamon, warm honey. Fuck it. Months. We'll disappear for months. Kye-Yell clenched his jaw hard enough to hurt, because now he had a new problem. He wasn't fully sure whether AhMarrah could feel his thoughts through the tether yet, and judging by the twitch at the corner of her mouth, she might have. The moment she reached the final step, Kye-Yell moved instantly. His hand caught hers, firmly, possessively, like it belonged there. Oh my God. A long breath left him. You look beautiful. Her hand stayed in his. Chosen. Karlani saw everything. Kye-Yell saw it too. You are a nasty beast. Kye-Yell didn't even look at him. Dude, if y'all had actually done something, you wouldn't have left that room. Finally, Kye-Yell smirked. If that had happened, his eyes flicked toward AhMarrah again. We'd be gone. For a week. A week? Minimum. Kye-Yell barked out laughing, the kind of laugh that made several nearby wolves glance in their direction. Inside Kye-Yell's head, Draven immediately became offended. Weeks. The wolf pushed harder. Let Kye-Yell run Roh Canyon. Grab our mate. Disappear. Another image slammed violently through Kye-Yell's mind. AhMarrah. Dark sheets. The tether burning completely out of control. The hidden mountain estate beyond Roh Canyon territory. No Roh dominion. No politics. No interruptions. Just her. Keep her with us. Keep everybody else away. Kye-Yell nearly choked on his own breathing. Control yourself. No. Draven sounded personally insulted by the suggestion. The wolf pushed harder. Weeks. Not days. Weeks. Kye-Yell immediately grabbed his whiskey, because this conversation inside his own head had become completely unreasonable. Coward. Kye-Yell took a long drink. The whiskey helped. Slightly. Unfortunately, the wolf wasn't finished. And neither was the tether. Outside, the Roh Canyon convoy already waited. 7 vehicles ahead, 7 behind. Decoys layered between. The armored SUV limousine positioned directly in the center. Snipers were already in place. Security layered invisibly throughout the surrounding streets. Nobody would see most of them. That was the point. Kye-Yell kept AhMarrah's hand firmly in his while escorting her toward the vehicle. The tether tightened the closer they moved together. Not painfully, not aggressively, just enough to remind them both that it was there. Always there. And even before the doors closed behind them, the whispers had already started. Because everybody watching understood the same thing. Kye-Yell never escorted women personally. Not like this. Not publicly. Not intentionally. Not with his hand locked around hers like she belonged there. And she did. The convoy doors closed. The engines came alive. Then, Roh Canyon began moving. By the time the convoy reached the Roh Canyon Event Center, the ballroom was already active beneath towering gold chandeliers, while North Lichen magazine floated throughout the room documenting every important arrival. Music drifted softly through the hall. Smooth, expensive, political. Tonight wasn't simply a gathering. It was a statement, a performance, a battlefield disguised as a celebration. And every powerful wolf in the hemisphere knew it. The allied packs had already been announced. The tolerated packs had already arrived. The Dominion had already taken their seats. And somewhere inside that ballroom, expectations were waiting. Unfortunately for them, Kye-Yell was about to destroy every single one. The allied packs had already been announced. The Huntingdon Pack. Alpha Stan Huntingdon. Luna Fluria Huntingdon. Forest Green, Black, Steel Silver. Hunters. Trackers. Precision Wolves. Years ago, Roh Canyon helped Huntingdon reclaim territory nearly destroyed by rogue coalitions. The Huntingdon Wolves never forgot it. Then came the Rest Meadows Pack. Alpha Udor Meadows. Luna Olive Meadows. Cream. Warm tan. Olive green. Providers. Land keepers. Survivalists. When famine spread through neighboring territories years earlier, Roh Canyon reinforced their borders while other packs attempted to raid them for food. That loyalty became permanent afterward. Then the Lyco Forest Pack entered. Alpha Darkon Lyco. Luna Mona Lyco. Deep brown. Moss green. Antique gold. Ancient wolves. Old bloodlines. The kind that remembered wars most packs only heard stories about. Behind Darkon's dark glasses, something older watched the room carefully. Then came the Still Waters Pack. Alpha Czar Waters. Luna Natasha Waters. Navy blue. Slate gray. Ice blue. Strategists. Political thinkers. Negotiators. Roh Canyon once dismantled an economic siege against Still Waters before it fully launched. Still Waters never forgot that either. Then the Blood Orange Moon Pack arrived. Alpha Jake Rowan. Luna Elan Rowan. Burnt orange. Crimson. Black. Fighters. Chaotic wolves. Loyal by choice. Jake and Kye-Yell nearly died together during a rogue uprising years ago. That kind of survival changes loyalty permanently. Then came the Dark Forest Hills Pack. Alpha Leo Vare. Luna Amethyst Vare. Charcoal. Black. Deep purple. Watchers. Information wolves. Specialists in surveillance and hidden intelligence. The previous Alpha and Luna of Dark Forest Hills were the ones who discovered the poison plot targeting Alpha K. Roth and Luna Lyra years ago. Without them, Roh Canyon leadership might have died before the poisoning was uncovered. Then entered the Verde Run Pack. Alpha Edward Verde, Luna Rebecca Verde, Deep Crimson, Black, Gold, Trade, Money, Transportation, Movement. The Verdes weren't known for conquering territory. They were known for controlling what moved through it. Roads, caravans, contracts, supply lines. Years earlier, Roh Canyon protected Verde-run trade routes from coordinated rogue attacks without demanding additional territory in return. The respect between them remained mutual afterward. Among the hemisphere, the Verdes represented a different kind of power. Not military strength, economic strength. And both could change the course of a war. Finally came the Golden Vire Coalition. Alpha Cassian Vire, Luna Eloin Vire, Champagne Gold, Black, Polished Bronze, Elegant, Wealth-driven, Influence-focused, Political elites. Golden Vire initially feared Roh Canyon. Then they realized Roh Canyon protected stability, and stability protected money. The alliance became inevitable after that. These were Kye-Yell's allies, not followers, equals, people who would bleed beside him. Then came the tolerated packs, the politically useful packs, the packs invited because diplomacy demanded it, including the Velmorian pack. Alpha Valor Velmorian, Luna Lyrienne Velmorian, and their daughter, Eris Velmorian. The Velmorian colors were electric blue, silver chrome, bright white, flashy, attention-seeking, performative. Their pack specialized in political positioning, elite networking, arranged alliances, and attaching themselves strategically to stronger bloodlines. Unlike Roh Canyon's quieter dominance, the Velmorians believed power needed to be seen loudly, which explained why Alpha Valor Velmorian was currently attempting to throw his weight around at the announcer's podium. "And my daughter will be announced properly." Valor adjusted the cuffs of his silver-lined jacket. The announcer remained perfectly calm. "You have already been placed in the presentation order, Alpha Velmorian." Valor's smile tightened instantly. "You misunderstand me." He gestured toward Eris. "My daughter should be introduced as the future Luna of Roh Canyon." Several nearby guests immediately started side-eyeing the conversation. The announcer didn't even blink. "I was not instructed to announce that title." Silence. The dangerous kind. "That arrangement is already in motion. Then I would advise discussing your grievances with Alpha Kye-Yell or Beta K-Vin directly." The announcer calmly closed the presentation ledger. "I announce confirmed titles only." Eris's smile twitched immediately, because that was embarrassing. Still, the Velmorians pushed forward anyway. Moments later, the announcer lifted his voice professionally. "Now presenting the Velmorian pack." That should have ended it. Unfortunately, Valor immediately spread his arms dramatically. "Ahem!" The ballroom paused, and somewhere nearby, several guests immediately regretted making eye contact. "And my beautiful daughter, the future Luna of Roh Canyon, Eris Velmorian, Soon to be heiress Roh. The side eyes spreading through the ballroom afterward were violent. Several allied alphas immediately looked down into their drinks. One Luna nearly choked on champagne. Oh, they actin' a pure ass already. Jake Rowan wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Even the announcer looked spiritually exhausted. Then the ballroom doors closed. The Valmorians settled into their seating area. The Dominion settled into theirs. And for nearly 15 minutes, the ballroom moved exactly the way everyone expected. Then the ballroom doors opened again, and everything changed. Then the ballroom doors opened again, and everything changed. Kye-Yell entered beside AhMarrah, aligned, her hand still in his. Chosen. The room felt it instantly. Not because anyone announced it, not because anyone explained it, because some things didn't require explanation. Some things simply were. Eris saw it, too late. The announcer paused briefly before speaking. Roh Canyon! That was it. No additional names, no mention of Eris, no future Luna title, no political explanation. Just Roh Canyon. The ballroom immediately exploded into whispers. That's not Eris. Then why is she beside him? Oh, this is bad. The Dominion didn't approve this. I don't think he cares. At the Valmorian table, Eris felt her stomach drop, because she had been announced. But AhMarrah? AhMarrah had just been presented. And politically, those were two very different things. Presented carried weight. Presented carried intention. Presented carried recognition. Presented meant the room was supposed to see her. And now they had. Across the ballroom, eyes followed them. Alphas, Lunas, Dominion members, political advisors, business leaders, old wolves, young wolves, everybody. Watching, calculating, adjusting. Because the second AhMarrah walked through those doors beside Kye-Yell, the political landscape shifted. Most of the room understood it immediately. Eris understood it too. She just hadn't expected to learn it this way. The whispers followed them all the way across the ballroom. Kye-Yell ignored every single one. His hand never left AhMarrah's. The Dominion watched. The Allied Pax watched. The Valmorians watched. Everybody watched, because every step felt intentional. And maybe it was. Or maybe Kye-Yell simply didn't care who was watching anymore. The closer they moved toward the Roh Canyon table, the more uncomfortable certain people became. Because this wasn't looking like a political arrangement. It wasn't looking like a negotiation. It wasn't looking temporary. It looked natural, which somehow made it worse. When they finally reached the Roh Canyon table, Kye-Yell pulled out AhMarrah's chair himself. Another whisper, another side eye, another expectation quietly dying somewhere in the ballroom. Because Kye-Yell didn't do things like that. Not publicly, not for women, not where everybody could see. Across the room, one older Luna nearly smiled. That single gesture told her everything she needed to know. AhMarrah took her seat. Kye-Yell settled beside her. The ballroom slowly followed. Conversations resumed. Glasses clinked. Music drifted softly through the room. But the atmosphere had changed. Then Kye-Yell stood. The room immediately quieted, not because anyone asked them to, because when the Alpha of Roh Canyon stood, people listened. His voice carried smoothly throughout the ballroom. There were expectations attached to tonight. Some discussed, some assumed, some decided without me. Several Dominion members immediately stiffened. A few guests suddenly became very interested in their drinks. Others pretended not to notice. Nobody was fooled. Everybody knew exactly who he was talking about. And that's exactly what they are. Expectations. Across the ballroom, Eris felt every word land. Across the Dominion tables, several elders exchanged careful glances. Across the Allied tables, Jake Rowan looked far too entertained. Tsar Waters calmly sipped his drink. Cassian Vire appeared to be enjoying himself entirely too much. Stan Huntington simply watched. Kye-Yell continued. Tonight we gather as a hemisphere. Welcome to Roh Canyon. Dinner will be served. The bar remains open all evening. Enjoy yourselves. That was it. No explanation, no apology, no defense, no permission requested. Just a statement. Then a dismissal. It was exactly the kind of thing powerful people did when they knew they didn't need approval. The music resumed. Conversations slowly returned. People relaxed, somewhat. But the room wasn't the same anymore. Because expectations had just collided with reality, and your reality had won. Then the food started arriving. The menu smelled divine. Every course carried AhMarrah's influence all over it. Succulent herb-roasted meats, glazed lightly in warm spice reductions, rested beside buttery whipped sweet potatoes, finished with smoked cinnamon and fresh herbs. Garlic butter vegetables shimmered beneath chandelier light, while citrus-drizzled greens added fresh color across oversized serving platters. Honey butter rolls disappeared almost immediately. Slow braised short ribs practically melted apart beneath silver serving forks. The ballroom noticed immediately. Because this wasn't the usual political banquet. This tasted like somebody had actually cared. Across the ballroom, Jake Rowan paused mid-chew. Hold on. Several nearby wolves looked toward him. Jake took another bite, then another, as if he was conducting some sort of emergency investigation. Across the room, Tsar Waters calmly sampled another forkful. This menu is significantly better than last year. Coming from Tsar, that was practically a standing ovation. A few tables away, Olive Meadows tasted the greens, then paused, then tasted them again. She looked personally offended by how good they were. Whoever influenced this menu understands balance. That statement spread faster than anyone realized, because Olive Meadows was not known for handing out compliments casually. Around the ballroom, more conversations started. Not about politics, not about alliances, not about Eris. About dinner, about flavors, about recipes, about who had approved the menu. And without realizing it, the hemisphere was already talking about AhMarrah, not as a rumor, not as a controversy, not as a political problem, as someone who had improved the evening. Which, in some ways, was even more dangerous. Meanwhile, at the Roh Canyon table, Kye-Yell was absolutely not behaving professionally, not even a little bit. Because while entertaining political conversation around the table, he continuously fed AhMarrah unconsciously between discussions, like his body had completely forgotten other people existed. A fork lifted, another bite offered, a question answered, another bite, a casual conversation with one alpha, another bite. His hand remained against the back of AhMarrah's chair, not possessive, not controlling, just present, like some part of him refused to be too far away from her. And the ballroom noticed, because Kye-Yell wasn't performing affection. He wasn't trying to make a statement. He wasn't trying to prove anything. That man genuinely forgot himself around her. One older Luna leaned toward another. He keeps feeding her. The second Luna watched for another moment, then slowly nodded. And eating off her plate, too. Sure enough, moments later, Kye-Yell stole one of AhMarrah's dinner rolls, without asking, without thinking, without even realizing he had done it. AhMarrah looked at him. Kye-Yell looked back. Neither said a word. Neither appeared surprised, which somehow made it worse. Even several neutral packs noticed, because Roh Canyon's alpha looked less like a political leader tonight and more like a dangerously attached male wolf. Across the ballroom, a few older wolves exchanged glances, not shocked, not concerned, amused, because they recognized the behavior immediately. The younger wolves didn't. The older wolves absolutely did. Meanwhile, AhMarrah simply continued eating, as though this wasn't the strangest dinner in hemisphere history. Eventually, Kye-Yell leaned slightly toward her. "I'm going to the bar for a minute." His thumb brushed softly against her hand. "I'll be right back." The tether pulsed, soft, steady, comforting. AhMarrah nodded once. The moment Kye-Yell stood, several alphas immediately looked interested, because they had been waiting all evening for this opportunity. The second Kye-Yell approached the allied alpha bar, the teasing started. Immediately. As if every man standing there had been patiently waiting for an opportunity to make his life difficult. Jake Rowan pointed directly at him. No hesitation, no mercy. "Nah, bro. AhMarrah got you out here matching colors." Several nearby alphas immediately smirked into their drinks. Kye-Yell took a slow sip of whiskey, trying very hard to look unaffected. Failing. "You are feeding her off both plates now." Czar Waters lifted his glass slightly, as if presenting evidence. "And every man that smiles at her suddenly discovers mortality." Cassian Vire smiled into his bourbon, entirely too pleased with himself. "You look ready to start a war." Stan Huntington rarely wasted words, which made the statement significantly worse. Kye-Yell took another drink. The whiskey wasn't helping anymore. "Y'all finished?" Not even close. Jake immediately leaned forward, dangerously excited. "Actually, my favorite moment was that fool from Valor Crest trying to flirt with her while pretending you weren't standing there." Silence. One beat. Then the entire group lost composure. "Oh, shit!" His eyes turned silver immediately. Immediately. Several glasses lifted. Someone nearly choked. Jake looked delighted with himself. That man looked like he was trying to calculate how fast he could apologize. The laughter got worse. Much worse. Kye-Yell simply stood there, drinking whiskey, pretending none of this was happening. Unfortunately, nobody believed him. You realize everybody in this room knows, right? Tsar wasn't even looking at him anymore, which somehow made it worse. Knows what? That earned him several looks. That you're completely gone. Cassian didn't even bother pretending otherwise. Gone. Finished. Cooked. Jake nearly dropped his drink. Brother, you pulled her chair out. The group immediately exploded again. In public, at a political event, in front of the Dominion. Jake looked personally attacked by the romance. Jake, I'm just saying. He pointed toward the Roh Canyon table, toward AhMarrah, toward the woman who had somehow managed to break Roh Canyon's alpha without even trying. That woman got you out here acting domesticated. The bar immediately lost whatever composure remained. Across the ballroom, the political games were still moving. The Dominion was still watching. The Velmorians were still recovering. And somewhere nearby, a different problem was quietly beginning to form. Meanwhile, across the ballroom, one quiet Dominion member leaned subtly towards Silas Valor. Not enough to attract attention, just enough to be heard. You should introduce yourself to the mystery lady while Roh Canyon is distracted. Silas glanced toward the Roh Canyon table, toward AhMarrah, toward opportunity, toward a decision that would have ended very badly for him. Unfortunately, someone else heard the conversation first. Zerai. While most wolves paid attention to what was happening, Zerai paid attention to what was about to happen. And that difference made her dangerous. The moment the words left the Dominion member's mouth, Zerai started moving. No hesitation, no discussion, no permission requested. Within seconds, long Omega serving carts began rolling through the ballroom walkways, carrying the next course. Silver lids, steam, fresh platters, perfect timing. And even more perfect placement. The carts moved directly between the Alpha Bar and the guest seating areas, creating obstacles, creating delays, creating excuses, creating distance. Nobody noticed, which meant the operation was working. The guests saw dinner service. The Dominion saw dinner service. Silas saw dinner service. Only a handful of wolves understood what was actually happening. Across the ballroom, Kye-Yell noticed immediately. Because unlike most people, he knew Zerai. He knew how her mind worked. And he knew those carts hadn't ended up there by accident. Across the room, Zerai gave the smallest nod imaginable. A fraction of movement, barely visible. Message received. Kye-Yell lifted his whiskey slightly. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Just enough. Acknowledgement. Approval. Trust. Meanwhile, Silas found himself repeatedly delayed, blocked, redirected, interrupted, without ever understanding why. One serving cart, then another, then a cluster of guests, then another tray, then another interruption. The universe appeared deeply committed to keeping him away from AhMarrah. The universe's name happened to be Zerai. By the time Silas finally found a clear path, the opportunity had already passed, exactly the way Zerai intended. Across the ballroom, the political games continued. The Alphas laughed, the Dominion watched, the Velmorians struggled, and Zerai quietly protected Roh Canyon without ever drawing attention to herself, just the way she preferred it. Across the ballroom, Eris Velmorian could feel it happening. Not hear it, not see it, feel it. The room was changing. Conversations that should have centered around her didn't. Political discussions that should have included her didn't. Attention that should have followed her didn't. Instead, everywhere she looked, the conversation kept circling back to the same person, AhMarrah. The menu, the entrance, the matching colors, the way Kye-Yell looked at her, the way she looked back, the way Roh Canyon seemed to accept her without ever being told to. None of that was supposed to happen. This wasn't the plan. Across the table, Alpha Valor Velmorian adjusted his cuffs. His expression remained composed, but his jaw tightened. He felt it too. The room wasn't moving toward Eris. The room was moving away from her. And that frightened him, because influence was easier to lose than territory. Eris glanced across the ballroom, toward Kye-Yell, toward AhMarrah, toward the woman currently occupying the seat that should have belonged to nobody. Not because Kye-Yell had offered it, not because the Dominion had approved it, not because politics demanded it, because he wanted her there. That realization landed harder than anything else. Why her? No one answered, because nobody at the table had an answer she wanted to hear. Then Eris made a mistake. A small one. A desperate one. The kind people make when they realize control is slipping away. She stood. I'll speak to him myself. Several members of the Velmorian table immediately exchanged looks, the kind adults shared when they already knew how something would end. Unfortunately, Eris didn't. Meanwhile, Eris attempted slithering beside Kye-Yell again, while Dominion members tried subtly intercepting his path. Her smile looked polished, but nervous underneath. Weren't I and my pack supposed to be sitting in the reserved section at your table, Kye-Yell? She laughed softly, a nervous little chuckle. The tether shifted immediately, because AhMarrah felt the desperation underneath the sweetness. Kye-Yell finally looked at Eris, calmly. No. A pause. You are exactly where you're supposed to sit. That landed immediately, hard. Eris's smile twitched, just once. Then she forced it back into place and stepped closer. Too close. Well, I remember when we used to make love. The tether shifted instantly, violently. Across the ballroom, AhMarrah stilled immediately. Eris kept smiling anyway. I satisfied you in so many different ways. Another step closer. You used to call my name and everything. Across the ballroom, Several older wolves immediately looked away because the moment had gotten messy, which somehow made it worse. He looked at Eris, calm, cold, controlled. Okay. Eris blinked once. And? Kye-Yell adjusted the cuff of his tux slowly, then continued. I never promised you anything beyond our little fun together. Silence tightened instantly. That's all it was. Another pause. Fun. Eris's face cracked. Just for half a second. Just enough. Then Kye-Yell glanced briefly toward the guest seating section, positioned near the rear of the ballroom. Now, his eyes returned to hers. Your pack appears concerned about you. Another slow pause. You wouldn't want to keep them waiting, right? Eris stood there for one painful second longer, trying desperately to keep her expression together. Then slowly, she picked her face back up, smiled, turned gracefully, and walked back toward her guest tables, positioned halfway toward the rear section of the ballroom. Alone. While whispers quietly followed behind her the entire way.
If you're loving what you see so far, drop a red heart in the comments. Like this episode, share it with your favorite drama lover, and subscribe to Velvet Fang Stories. Then click the bell and turn on all notifications so you never miss a new episode.